it was a slam dunk case.
Tonight, 2 women from a First Nation in Alberta win the right to participate in banned elections.
Truly, the residential school system did do great damage to Indigenous people.
The Archbishop of Vancouver and a First Nation in British Columbia hold a special Easter ceremony.
Honestly, it makes me feel closer to home.
And some sure signs of reconciliation appear at a community college in Ottawa. Good evening, I'm Savannah Kelly. Welcome to APTN National News. It's day 2 at the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal on Wednesday. Federal bureaucrats and First Nations leaders and child welfare advocates testified regarding Jordan's Principle. Many say the government is failing to process Jordan's Principle claims in a timely manner. First Nations kids are supposed to be able to receive health, social, and educational supports within 48 hours. On Wednesday, Assistant Deputy Minister of Indigenous Services Candace St. Aubin was asked about the backlog of Jordan's Principle requests. It's estimated 1/3 of requests are not dealt with as quickly as they should be. First Nations Caring Society lawyer David Taylor asked St. Aubin if other community programs could alleviate the backlog.
Is your view that existing programming in the community is sufficient to meet all the needs that are out there?
I can't speak for all existing community programming, but my opinion is we always like to have more robust programming where the leadership is leading it and developing it at the community level.
And if those programs are working well, and if folks are going there as opposed to Jordan's Principle, that would be a measure to ease the burden on the request system. Is that right?
I think it's one of many, as if folks know that they exist, because many even know that programming does exist within their communities, and if they're in urban centers, etc. I think that there's a bunch of things that could hopefully support mums and babies.
The federal government is promising to invest $1 billion into a new national school food program. It will help expand existing school food programs, feeding an additional 400,000 children over 5 years. The funding will be included in the government's upcoming April 16th budget. The program is expected to be up and running for the 2024-2025 school year. Canada is the only G7 country without a national school food program. On Monday, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh called for a national program to be included in this year's budget. First Nations leaders are weighing in on Manitoba's priorities after the NDP government released its 2024 budget on Tuesday. APTN Sierra Bettens caught up with them in Winnipeg.
Following the release of Manitoba's 2024 budget, Grand Chiefs Kathy Merrick, Garrison Satie, and Jerry Daniels expressed mixed emotions. In this year's budget, boosting healthcare is a clear priority. That includes investing in Indigenous-specific health supports, like improving access to dialysis services in Norway House and Pimicikamak Cree Nation, and helping Indigenous organizations offer mobile services for sexually transmitted and bloodborne infections. The Grand Chiefs welcome these investments.
Well, there's been some investments made in healthcare in the north, and that will impact our First Nations in northern Manitoba. And those investments are much needed, and we're very pleased that we have that opportunity to receive the support we need in the north.
Southern Chiefs Organization Grand Chief Jerry Daniels added that funding quality healthcare is critical to closing the 11-year life expectancy gap between First Nations and non-First Nations Manitobans.
It's very important that we get health care right, that we create a health system that we can trust. And on the other side of that is obviously homelessness. Our people are struggling in the streets. There's safety issues there, there's addictions issues there. It's all part of health. And so we're going to continue working with the province and the officials to ensure that we get it right on that.
However, the leaders also noted a few critical items missing from this year's budget.
I was hoping that the Island Lake area would get their hospital, because there's 18,000 people within that area, so there was no mention of that.
Obviously, we want the province to move faster on the treaty land entitlements, the transfer of First Nations lands back, rightful lands, millions of acres that's still outstanding, so the quicker we can see that happen, the better it will be off for First Nations.
In a statement published by the Southern Chiefs Organization on Wednesday, Grand Chief Daniels commended the province on affordable housing and harm reduction commitments. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
We want to hear what you think about the budget or any other stories you see here tonight. Here's how to continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. This past Easter Sunday, a sacred covenant was signed between a First Nation in British Columbia and the Archdiocese of Vancouver. APTN's Tina House has this story.
In March of 2022, a delegation from Canada, including residential school survivors and Indigenous leaders such as Cookbee Roseanne Casimir from Kamloops to Sequepum, traveled to Rome, Italy for a private audience with Pope Francis. That historic trip concluded with an apology from the Pope over the atrocities committed at residential schools.
I brought forth messages directly from survivors, as well as the realities of representing a First Nation now charged with the aftermath of a residential school, the sacred care of missing children in unmarked graves. I went to Rome with hope of building meaningful steps towards reconciliation while seeking justice in whatever form the families of the missing children seek.
And almost 2 years later, since that trip to Italy, here to Kamloops to Sequepum, where the initial 215 unmarked graves were first discovered in May of 2021, a special ceremony took place between the Archdiocese of Vancouver and the First Nation on Easter Sunday. Witnesses were blanketed and brushed off as the signing of the Sacred Covenant took place.
To sign a sacred covenant with the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Vancouver is to enact important steps of contrition, be it confirming historical records, sharing truths, and commitments to action. To sign it on Easter Sunday is a symbolic and significant step forward.
A few of the highlights of the covenant include the Church's commitment to help honor and memorialize former students of the Kamloops Residential School, creating more easy searchable tools to find documents, and the Church has retained scientific experts who have worked around the world to help identify those in the unmarked graves.
Truly, the residential school system did do great damage to Indigenous people, especially to their language, their customs, and their traditions. Unquestionably, the Church was wrong in implementing a government colonialist policy, which resulted in devastation for many children, families, and communities. We recognize, as Catholics, as the Catholic Church, our part in the resulting tragedies. But now, we wish to journey with the people of the Kamloops Nation on a path to greater healing, more understanding, increased respect.
The Archbishop says all records from the Archdiocese of Vancouver have been turned over so that families can finally find out the truth of what happened to their lost children and relatives. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
We need to step aside for a quick break. Coming up, we'll bring you an update on the story of two women who had to fight for the right to vote and run in their community's banned elections.
They picked and choose who could vote, and because my family were Bill C-31s, we were not allowed to vote. So in 2020, I decided to challenge our election.
Welcome back to APTN National News. In 2021, APTN told you about two women from Whitefish Lake First Nation in Alberta, and they were suing the band for not being allowed to vote or run for chief or council in elections. With an election coming up, APTN's Chris Stewart has an update on if they now can.
Karen McCarthy has never voted in Whitefish Lake First Nation elections. As a child of a mother who married a non-Indian, Karen did not have status. In 1985, Bill C-31 was passed. It allowed women who married non-Indians to keep their status and participate in elections. But Whitefish Lake First Nation never updated their election code to allow C31ers to vote.
They picked and choose who could vote, and because my family were Bill C31s, we were not allowed to vote. So in 2020, I decided to challenge our election, and out of that, it was a judicial review that I requested based on the fact that it's discrimination against my mother's generation, my generation, and my children's generation.
Lorna Jackson also was not allowed to vote or run for leadership because she was in a common law relationship. She had wanted to run for council and possibly for chief.
In the past 3 years, I was, encouraged by family and everybody else to get married, get ready for the next election. I'm like, no. I'm not going to be one of the statistics to get married just to, be part of leading our community. I believe you don't need to be married. Like I've been, 11 years with my common law, I'm sure it proves that I'm committed to this relationship.
She also went to court saying it was discrimination. Whitefish Lake First Nation is part of Saddle Lake Cree Nation, which did amend their election code in 2017 after a court case. Whitefish Lake did not follow suit. In 2023, a judicial review concluded that preventing members from voting was discrimination, and the band amended their election code.
It was a slam dunk case. There's so much precedent that was set. There was very little legal or reasons to exclude us as because we are full band members under the Indian Act of being a Section 11 band, where everyone on the general list is a full band member.
Lorna Jackson is running for council for the first time on April 12th.
I'm really excited. I just want to do right by my people, for my people, and give them that voice. That was always just that voice to be heard, to be listened to.
And Karen McCarthy is looking forward to being a first-time voter.
So a week ago, I went to one of the organizations that has posted our voters list in Edmonton, and I went to check to really, so I was told my name was on there, but I had to see for myself. So I saw my name, and I saw my son and my daughter's name. So that, that really hit home. I felt very, very proud of myself.
APTN spoke to Chief Stan Houle, who had no comment on the story, and says he is not running for re-election on April 19th. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
More than 250 independent artists from around Canada will be descending on Toronto next week for the 2024 Artist Project. Multimedia artist Jay Soul, also known as Chippewa, who is from Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, is among the artists taking part. He joins us now from Toronto. Jay, thanks for being with us. To start off, what kind of exposure can something like Artist Project bring to your work?
It brings a lot of exposure of new eyeballs and new work that may have not seen your work ever before. And specifically for me, my work is most of my main audience is the Indigenous community. So an opportunity to show outside of the Indigenous community to a very diverse group of people passing their way through the Artist Project is a really great opportunity for myself.
And you're a multimedia artist and a clothing designer. How would you describe your work?
I think my work is described as pop art with an Indigenous twist. So, taking inspiration from pop culture references in movies and films and television and music and products and, kind of a mashup of all pop culture in between.
And with your art, what role do you think art has to play in decolonization and reconciliation?
Yeah, I don't know necessarily that it has much of a role in either in ways for me, I guess. I'm not really a true fan or believer of reconciliation in terms of the way Canada presents it. For me, reconciliation is about really first and foremost the return of stolen land and honoring treaty. I don't believe reconciliation can happen without the two of those things being put to the front of the line, call to action 1 and 2. So I don't know necessarily that my work connects to it in that sort of light.
And some of your past work in public spaces has been referred to as social disruption campaigns. Can you talk a little bit about that, and what role do you think art could play in activism?
I think all art is designed for the creation of conversation, and you know what conversations you can create around that can come in many different forms. I think it's important as an artist to try to, you know, put out some sort of story that's whether it's connected to your work, personal experiences, or other things that are happening in the world around you. I mean, I think it plays a huge role in communicating, you know, in ways that really open people's eyes. And specifically in my work, it's using pop culture references about sort of drawing the viewer in through a familiar reference, and then sort of maybe kind of slipping in the message that they weren't sort of expecting from that work.
Right on. Well, Jay, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks for taking some time for us today, and best of luck at the show next week.
Okay, miigwech, thank you for having me.
We need to take one more short break. Our photo of the day and weather are up next. Plus, Algonquin College continues to indigenize its Ottawa campus.
Really, it's a breath of fresh air seeing the language incorporated into the campus here, because it makes me feel less alone and more a part of a greater community.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Karen Sear provides today's photo near Burns Lake, British Columbia. She was able to get close enough to a grouse and snap this close-up. Thanks for sharing that photo, Karen. If you have a photo you would like to share, send it to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Over on the East Coast, 3 degrees and snow in Halifax, +2 in St. John's. Happy Valley Goose Bay, 3 degrees there, Kuujjuaq, -1. Val-d'Or, flurries and 3 degrees, Montreal, +2. Sault Ste. Marie, snowy and 6 degrees, Sarnia, +5. Timmins, snowy, 3 degrees there, Sioux Lookout, +4. Churchill, +1, Thompson, +6. Dauphin, 9 degrees and sunshine there, Gimli, +5. Regina, 18 degrees, mix of sun and clouds, Saskatoon, rainy and 6 degrees. Stony Rapids, -3, and La Ronge, rainy and 4 degrees. Flurries in Fort Chip and +1, Fort McMurray, +4. Calgary, snowy and 11 degrees there, Red Deer, +2. Campbell River, 12 degrees, Canal, +9. Smithers, 8 degrees and sunshine, Dease Lake, snowy and 4 degrees. Beaver Creek, sunshine and +4, Rock River, -3. Watee, sunshine and -5 there, Yellowknife, -6. Paulatuck, mix of sun and cloud, -8 there, Inuvik, -4. Baker Lake, flurries and -2, Cambridge Bay, sunshine, -16. Aglulic, -10 and sunny, Resolute, snowy and -13. Algonquin College continues to indigenize its Ottawa campus. It's part of a commitment to reconciliation that began a few years ago. Here's Annette Francis with that story.
The first step of the indigenization strategy has concluded. Interior murals and signage in the Anishinaabe language now adorn the hallways of the Algonquin College's C building. Shayna Shawaganabe is a member of the Beausoleil First Nation in Ontario. She's in her second year of the Applied Museum Studies program here and embraces the presence of language and culture.
Honestly, it makes me feel closer to home with all the Indigenous representation here, because that's one of the main reasons why I chose Algonquin, is because it's named after Indigenous people, and it's really It's a breath of fresh air seeing the language incorporated into the campus here, because it makes me feel less alone and more a part of a greater community.
It's part of the Indigenous Pathways project, where Algonquin commits to preserving Indigenous culture and language. In 2022, as a language revitalization effort, 4 campus streets were renamed with animal names of cultural significance. The president and CEO of Algonquin College says it warms his heart to see these changes.
It's very good medicine. It's so important for us to revitalize language and to help people appreciate it. It's the first language of this territory, so for me, it's and with the name of Algonquin College, it makes absolute sense to be doing these events and taking these first steps.
Anita Tedesco is the director of Indigenous Initiatives. She says it's a healing journey.
My mom is a residential school survivor. My dad is an Indian day school survivor. I was educated in Kitigan, Zibi, and then eventually in Ottawa. So it's a complete honor for me to walk into work, to walk onto this Ottawa campus and see my nation's language and to see the art that speaks to the territory, that speaks to the nation, that speaks to our people.
According to Tedesco, more Indigenous language, art, and culture will be reflected throughout the school, something Shawaganabe fully supports.
I would love to see more Indigenous languages incorporated into the college, and especially more Indigenous art, because we do have the new ACCE building, and I feel like it's very it feels very corporate in that new building, and that building hasn't been indigenized yet. So.
Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Canadians are getting ready to watch Monday's historic solar eclipse, and many are planning to flock to areas in the direct path of totality. Officials are warning drivers to plan for traffic delays and use extra caution if you have to be on the road during the eclipse.
We don't want people to be stopping on the highways, on the shoulders to check out what's happening with the eclipse. It takes time for it to actually make its way to totality, so there is going to be that lead up to the moon blocking the sun. Don't be looking at the sun until you have the complete totality in there. And if you're driving a vehicle, you need to keep your attention focused on the road. Please don't stop on the shoulders. We need to still keep access for emergency vehicles.
The Niagara region and Hamilton, Ontario are among the Canadian cities in the direct path of totality. Niagara has declared a state of emergency ahead of the event and is bracing for up to 1 million visitors. And that's all the time we have for your midweek news. Head over to our website, aptnnews.ca, for Indigenous news anytime or to catch up on stories you may have missed. I'm Savannah Kelly. Marcy, Miigwech, thank you for joining us. Take care and have a great night.